Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the broken communication device in his hands. The small box that was supposed to keep him connected to his ship was now just a pile of burned circuits and melted plastic. He had been fixing the air filters on the outside of the Terra Nova when a strange energy wave hit the planet. The wave knocked out most of the ship's systems and sent Jake flying into the nearby forest. Now he was alone on an alien planet with no way to call for help. Jake stood up and brushed the dirt off his blue maintenance uniform. The forest around him was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. The trees were tall and silver, with leaves that glowed with a soft blue light. Strange flowers hung from the branches like glowing lanterns. The air smelled sweet like honey mixed with electricity. In the distance, Jake could see tall spires rising above the forest. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal, spinning slowly in the alien sky. Smoke or steam came from the tops of the spires. Jake figured that where there was smoke, there might be people. Or at least something that looked like people. Jake started walking toward the spires. His boots crunched on the strange blue grass that covered the forest floor. As he walked, he noticed that the plants seemed to react to his presence. The glowing flowers turned to follow him as he passed. The grass bent away from his feet like it was afraid of him. After an hour of walking, Jake reached the edge of the forest. Before him stretched a valley filled with the most amazing city he had ever seen. Buildings made of crystal and metal rose high into the sky. They twisted and curved like living things. Bridges of light connected the buildings, and strange vehicles floated between them without making any sound. Jake could see movement in the city. Tall figures walked along the bridges and streets. From this distance, they looked like people. But Jake could tell they were different. They moved in a way that seemed too smooth, too graceful to be human. Jake took a deep breath and started walking down the hill toward the city. He had no choice. His ship was too far away and his radio was broken. These aliens might be able to help him, or they might decide to eat him. Either way, he had to try. As Jake got closer to the city, he could see the aliens more clearly. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their skin was blue and seemed to glow from the inside. They had large eyes that shone like stars. Most strange of all, they had crystal formations growing from their heads and shoulders like natural crowns. The first alien to see Jake stopped walking and stared. Then it made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Other aliens turned to look. Soon, a small crowd had gathered at the edge of the city, all staring at the strange creature walking toward them. Jake raised his hand and waved. "Hello," he called out, even though he knew they probably could not understand him. "I'm friendly. I need help." The aliens talked among themselves in their musical language. Then several of them stepped forward. They were carrying long staffs that glowed with the same blue light as their skin. Jake realized these were probably weapons. Jake stopped walking and raised both hands to show he was not armed. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said. "My ship crashed. Well, not crashed exactly, but I got separated from my crew. I just need to find a way to contact them." The aliens with the staff surrounded Jake. They were not being mean, but they were clearly not taking any chances. One of them, who had more crystals on his head than the others, spoke to Jake in the wind chime language. When Jake shook his head to show he did not understand, the alien touched a small device on his arm. Suddenly, Jake could understand what the alien was saying. "You are not from this world," the alien said. His voice sounded like music. "What are you?"
"Why have you come here?"
"I'm human," Jake said, surprised that the translation device worked so well. "I'm from a planet called Earth. I work on a spaceship. We came here to explore and learn about your world. I got separated from my crew by accident." The aliens looked at each other with their glowing eyes. They seemed excited about something. The leader alien spoke again. "You walk on two legs," he said. "You have the right shape. You came from the stars. Could it be true?" "Could what be true?" Jake asked, but the alien did not answer. Instead, he spoke quickly to the other aliens in their own language. Jake's translator could not keep up with the fast conversation, but he caught a few words. "Prophecy. The one who walks on two. Queen must see." The aliens formed a circle around Jake and began walking toward the center of the city. Jake had no choice but to go with them. The buildings around him were even more amazing up close. The crystal walls showed moving pictures of alien landscapes and strange animals. The metal parts of the buildings hummed with energy. As they walked deeper into the city, more and more aliens came out to see Jake. They lined the streets and bridges, all staring at him with their star-like eyes. Some of them were whispering the same words Jake had heard before. The one who walks on two. Finally, they reached the largest building in the city center. It was a palace made entirely of crystal that reached high into the clouds. The walls glowed with rainbow colors that shifted and changed like the northern lights on Earth. The alien guards led Jake through the palace doors and down a long hallway. The floor was made of crystal that felt warm under Jake's feet. Strange music seemed to come from the walls themselves. At the end of the hallway was a huge room with a crystal throne in the center. On the throne sat the most beautiful and terrifying creature Jake had ever seen. She was much larger than the other aliens, with skin that glowed like the sun. The crystal formations on her head formed an elaborate crown that sparkled with inner light. This was clearly their queen. The guards brought Jake to the center of the room and made him stop about 20 feet from the throne. The queen stared at Jake with eyes that seemed to look right through him. For a long moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then something incredible happened. The alien queen stood up from her throne and walked down the steps toward Jake. When she was only a few feet away from him, she suddenly dropped to her knees and bowed her head low. All the other aliens in the room immediately did the same thing. They all knelt down and bowed to Jake, a simple maintenance worker from Earth who just wanted to fix his radio and go home. Jake stood there with his mouth open, completely confused. "Why are you kneeling?" he asked. "I'm nobody special. I just fix air filters and clean plasma conduits." The queen looked up at him with tears of light streaming down her glowing face. When she spoke, her voice was filled with hope and desperation. "You are the one from the prophecy," she said. "You are the one who will save us all." Jake stared at the alien queen kneeling before him. His brain felt like it had stopped working. A prophecy? About him? Jake Miller, who spent his days crawling through air ducts and replacing broken parts. This had to be some kind of mistake. "Please get up," Jake said, feeling very uncomfortable. "You shouldn't be kneeling to me. I'm just a regular guy. I think you have me confused with someone else." The queen slowly stood up, but her glowing eyes never left Jake's face. "There is no mistake," she said. "I am Queen Lyrolith of the Zephyrians. For 10,000 years my people have waited for your arrival. You are exactly as the prophecy described." "What prophecy?" Jake asked. He looked around the crystal throne room at all the aliens still kneeling. "Can you all please stand up? This is making me really nervous." Queen Lyrolith made a gesture with her hand, and all the other Zephyrians stood up. But they continued to stare at Jake like he was the most important thing in the universe. "Come with me," the queen said. "I will show you the prophecy. Then you will understand." Jake followed Queen Lyrolith through another doorway into a smaller room. The walls of this room were covered with crystal panels that showed moving pictures, like television screens made of living gemstone. The queen touched one of the panels and it began to glow brighter. "This is our history," she explained. "Watch and learn." The crystal panel showed scenes from long ago. Jake saw Zephyrian cities that were even more beautiful than the one he was in now. He saw millions of the crystal-crowned aliens living peaceful lives, creating art and music and amazing technology. "My people have lived on this world for 50,000 years, Queen Lyrolith said. "We are beings of crystal and light. We build our cities from living stone and power them with the energy of our own spirits." The pictures on the wall changed. Now Jake saw something dark spreading across the Zephyrian cities. Whatever it was, it made the beautiful crystal buildings turn black and crumble. The Zephyrians in the pictures were running and screaming. 10,000 years ago, the silent death came to our world," the queen continued. "It is not a disease or a natural disaster. It is a weapon created by our enemies, beings we call the Devourers. They feed on the life force of other species." Jake watched in horror as the pictures showed alien ships attacking Zephyrian cities. The enemy aliens looked like living shadows with too many teeth. They had no solid form but moved like smoke that could think and hate. "The Devourers nearly destroyed us," Queen Lyrolith said. "Most of our people died. Our cities fell. But in our darkest hour, our greatest prophet received a vision. She saw that one day a being would come from the stars to save us." The crystal wall now showed a figure that made Jake's heart skip a beat. It was clearly meant to be a human. The figure had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a round head with no crystals. It looked exactly like Jake. "The one who walks on 2, the queen said softly. "That is what the prophecy calls you. It says you will come when the silent death returns. It says you will have the inner fire that can drive away the darkness." "The silent death is back?" Jake asked. He was starting to understand why the queen looked so desperate. Yes, Queen Lyrillith said. 3 months ago it began again. Look, she touched another crystal panel. This one showed current pictures of the Zephyrian cities. Jake could see that many of the beautiful crystal buildings were turning black and crumbling. Zephyrian people were lying in the streets, their inner light growing dim. Our scientists believe we have less than 1 year before every Zephyrian on this planet dies, the Queen said. The silent death is spreading faster this time. We have tried everything we know, but nothing can stop it. Jake felt sick to his stomach. An entire species was dying and they thought he could save them. But he was just a maintenance worker. He did not have any special powers or knowledge. I don't understand, Jake said. What is this inner fire you're talking about? I don't have any fire. I'm just a guy who fixes broken things. Queen Lyrillith studied Jake's face carefully. The prophecy is not clear about the nature of the inner fire. It only says that the one who walks on two will possess something that the devourers cannot touch or drain. Something that can heal what they have corrupted. But I don't know how to heal anything, Jake protested. I mean, I can fix a broken air recycler or replace a burned-out power coupling. But I don't know anything about medicine or magic or whatever this is. Perhaps, the Queen said, healing broken things is exactly what we need. Just then a Zephyrian guard rushed into the room. He spoke quickly in their musical language to Queen Lyrillith. Jake's translator picked up some of the words. Something about ships in the sky and humans. Your people have found you, the Queen told Jake. They are searching for you in flying machines. Jake felt a wave of relief. Captain Parker and the crew of the Terra Nova were looking for him. He would not have to face this impossible situation alone. Can you contact them? Jake asked. My captain is really smart. Maybe she can help figure this out. Queen Lyrillith nodded. We will bring them here. But first there is something else you must see. She led Jake to a window that looked out over the city. From this high up, Jake could see the full extent of the damage caused by the silent death. Large sections of the Crystal City were black and dead. The light bridges between buildings had gone dark. In some areas, the beautiful spires had collapsed completely. This is what the Devourers do, the Queen said. They do not simply kill. They drain the life force from everything they touch. They leave behind empty husks that can never live again. They have done this to thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Why? Jake asked. What do they get out of it? They feed on life energy, Queen Lyrillith explained. The more complex and beautiful the life, the more they enjoy consuming it. They are drawn to worlds with advanced civilizations and rich cultures. They destroy not just bodies but souls. Jake thought about Earth with its billions of humans and countless other life forms. If the Devourers were really out there in space, Earth would be like a feast to them. Have they attacked other human worlds? Jake asked. We do not know, the Queen admitted. The Devourers move slowly between star systems. They take their time with each world, savoring the destruction. But eventually they always move on to find new prey. Jake realized that this was not just about saving the Zephyrians. If the Devourers were real, then Earth and every other living world in the galaxy was in danger. Maybe that was why the prophecy existed. Maybe saving the Zephyrians was just the first step in a much bigger battle. Okay, Jake said, taking a deep breath. I still don't understand why you think I'm special, but I'll try to help. What do you need me to do? Queen Lyrillith smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. Her face lit up like the sun coming out from behind clouds. First, we must bring your ship's captain here so she can understand the situation, the Queen said. Then we will take you to see the silent death up close. Our scientists have been studying it for months. Perhaps your human eyes will see something that ours have missed. And if I can't help? Jake asked. If it turns out I'm not the person from your prophecy? Queen Lyrillith's smile faded. Then my people will die, and the Devourers will move on to the next world. And the next, until every living thing in the galaxy has been consumed. Jake looked out at the dying Crystal City and made a decision. He might not be a hero or a chosen one, but he was not going to stand by and watch an entire species die, not if there was even a tiny chance he could help. All right, he said. Let's contact my captain and get started. Captain Lisa Parker stood in the Crystal Palace throne room, trying not to show how amazed she was by everything around her. She had been searching for Jake for hours when the Zephyrian ships found the Terra Nova. At first, her crew thought they were under attack. Then the aliens started broadcasting in perfect English, asking to speak with the captain of the one who walks on two. Now she was face to face with Jake, who looked completely overwhelmed by the situation he had stumbled into. "Let me get this straight," Captain Parker said. "These aliens think you're some kind of prophesied savior because you have 2 legs?" "That's just part of it," Jake said. "There's more to the prophecy, but I don't really understand it either." Queen Lyrillith stepped forward. "Captain Parker, your engineer may be the only hope for my people's survival. We would like to show you what we are facing." Captain Parker nodded. She was a good officer who believed in gathering all the facts before making decisions. "Show me." The Queen led them through the palace to a chamber filled with scientific equipment that looked like a cross between a laboratory and an art gallery. Crystal computers hummed with energy while holographic displays showed 3-dimensional models of molecular structures. A Zephyrian scientist approached them. His crystal crown was smaller than the Queen's, but it pulsed with rapid flashes of light that seemed to indicate he was thinking very hard. "This is Crystallis Prime, our chief scientist," Queen Lyrillith said. "He has been studying the Silent Death since it returned." Crystallis Prime bowed to Jake, then turned to Captain Parker. "Captain, what I am about to show you may be difficult to accept. The Silent Death is not a natural phenomenon. It is an ancient weapon system created by entities that exist partly outside our normal space-time." The scientist touched one of his crystal computers, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. "Red systems are worlds that have been completely consumed by the Devourers," Crystallis Prime explained. "Yellow systems are worlds currently under attack. Green systems are worlds that are still safe." Jake stared at the display. Most of the galaxy was red. There were only a few scattered patches of yellow and green left. "How long have they been doing this?" Captain Parker asked. "Our records suggest the Devourers have been active for at least 1 million years, the scientist said. "They move slowly, taking decades or centuries to fully consume each world. But they never stop." "Why haven't we heard about this?" Jake asked. "If they've been attacking civilizations for so long, why don't we have any records of them on Earth?" "Your world is in a relatively empty part of the galaxy," Queen Lyrillith said. "The Devourers prefer to attack densely populated regions first. But based on their current pattern of movement, they will reach your solar system within the next 50 to 100 years. Captain Parker felt a chill run down her spine. She was responsible for the safety of her crew, but this was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. "What exactly are these Devourers?" Crystallis Prime activated another display. This one showed a swirling mass of dark energy, with what looked like teeth and eyes scattered throughout it. "They are energy beings that exist in a state between matter and pure thought," the scientist explained. "They cannot create life or energy on their own. They can only consume what others have built. They feed on the life force of biological creatures and the creative energy of advanced civilizations. So they're like cosmic vampires," Jake said. "That is not an inaccurate comparison," Crystallis Prime agreed. "But they are far more dangerous than any legend from your world. When they drain a being's life force, they also consume their memories, knowledge, and creative potential. Every person they kill makes them smarter and more powerful." The scientist changed the display again. Now it showed the Zephyrian homeworld with dark patches spreading across its surface like a disease. "The Silent Death is their feeding mechanism," he continued. "It slowly drains the life energy from everything in a large area. Buildings crumble, plants die, animals collapse. Intelligent beings fall into a sleep from which they never wake up. And this is happening to your people right now?" Captain Parker asked. "Yes," Queen Lyrillith said. "We estimate that 20% of our population has already died. If the current rate continues, we will be extinct within 10 months. Jake walked closer to the holographic display. He could see that the dark patches were not spreading randomly. They followed a pattern, moving out from specific points like ripples in a pond. "Where are these starting points?" Jake asked. "The places where the Silent Death begins?" "We call them infection sites," Crystallis Prime said. "They appear to be areas where the barrier between our dimension and the Devourer's realm has been weakened. Have you studied these sites up close?" Captain Parker asked. "Our scientists have tried," the Queen said sadly. "But any Zephyrian who gets too close to an infection site dies within minutes. The Silent Death is strongest there." Jake suddenly had an idea. "What if I went to look at one of these sites? I mean, I'm not a Zephyrian. Maybe it won't affect me the same way." "Absolutely not," Captain Parker said immediately. Jake, you're not trained for dangerous field work. If this silent death thing is as deadly as they say, I can't let you take that risk. But what if the prophecy is real? Jake argued. What if I really do have some kind of immunity? This could be the only way to find out. Queen Lyraleth looked thoughtful. There might be a way to test this safely. Crystallis Prime, do we have any samples of silent death corruption that have been contained? The scientist's crystal crown flashed with excitement. Yes, we have several small samples in our isolation chambers. They are heavily shielded, but we could expose Jake to a very tiny amount to see what happens. Captain Parker did not like this idea at all. And if it kills him? Then we will know the prophecy was wrong, Queen Lyralith said. But if it does not affect him or if he can somehow resist it, then we will have proof that he truly is the one we have been waiting for. Jake looked at Captain Parker. Cap, I know this sounds crazy, but these people are dying. If there's even a small chance I can help, I have to try. Captain Parker studied Jake's face. She had known him for 3 years. He was not brave in the traditional sense, but he was stubborn and determined when he thought something needed to be fixed. And right now he looked at the dying Zephyrian civilization like it was a broken machine that he was responsible for repairing. Fine, she said, but we do this carefully. Small exposure, full safety protocols, and I want Dr. Chen monitoring Jake's vital signs the whole time. Crystallis Prime led them to another part of the laboratory. This section was separated from the rest by thick crystal walls that hummed with energy. Inside the sealed chamber, Jake could see a small crystal container that seemed to hold a piece of absolute darkness. This is a sample of matter that has been completely drained by the silent death, the scientist explained. In its current state, it actively consumes any life energy that comes near it. Jake looked at the dark crystal and felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was not fear exactly. It was more like the feeling he got when he looked at a particularly challenging repair job, a mixture of concern and determination. What do I need to do? He asked. We will open a small window in the containment field, Crystallis Prime said. You simply need to reach toward the sample. If you feel any weakness, dizziness, or pain, pull your hand back immediately. Captain Parker, Dr. Chen, and several Zephyrian scientists gathered around monitoring equipment. Jake stood in front of the containment chamber and took a deep breath. Opening containment window in 3, 2, 1. A small hole appeared in the crystal wall. Immediately, Jake could feel something cold and hungry reaching toward him. It was like standing next to an open freezer, except instead of cold air, this thing was trying to pull something out of him. Jake slowly reached his hand toward the dark crystal sample. As his fingers got closer, the pulling sensation got stronger. But something strange happened. Instead of feeling weak or dizzy, Jake felt a warm energy building up inside his chest. His hand touched the sample. The moment his skin made contact with the corrupted crystal, several things happened at once. The dark material began to crack and spark with tiny flashes of light. The pulling sensation stopped completely, and most amazing of all, the piece of absolute darkness began to turn clear again. Impossible, Crystallis Prime whispered. Jake pulled his hand back and looked at the sample. Where once there had been a piece of dead, corrupted crystal, now there was a small gem that glowed with soft inner light. How do you feel? Dr. Chen asked. Fine, Jake said. Actually, I feel great. Like I just had a really good cup of coffee. Queen Lyralith stared at the restored crystal sample with tears streaming down her glowing face. It is true, she whispered. The prophecy is true. You have the inner fire. Captain Parker looked at the monitoring equipment. Jake's vital signs had not just remained stable during the exposure. They had actually improved. His heart rate was steady, his brain activity was more organized than usual, and there were energy readings coming from his body that Dr. Chen had never seen before. Jake, Captain Parker said slowly, I think you might actually be able to help these people. The Zephyrian transport ship flew silently over the devastated landscape. Jake pressed his face to the crystal window and watched the destruction pass below. What had once been a beautiful forest of silver trees was now a wasteland of black, twisted stumps. The ground itself looked sick, covered with dark veins that pulsed with an evil light. This infection site appeared 6 weeks ago, Queen Lyralith explained. It started as a small dead spot no bigger than your hand. Now it covers an area of 50 square miles and continues to grow. Captain Parker checked her scanner readings. I'm detecting massive energy discharges from the center of the affected area. Whatever is causing this is incredibly powerful. Dr. Chen looked up from her medical equipment. Jake, your body is doing something very strange. Your bioelectric field is getting stronger as we approach the infection site. It's like your nervous system is charging up. Jake could feel it too. The warm sensation in his chest was growing stronger, spreading through his arms and legs. It was not painful, but it was definitely noticeable. Like drinking hot chocolate on a cold day, except the warmth was coming from inside him. Are you sure about this? Captain Parker asked for the 10th time. We still don't know exactly what's happening to you. I'm sure, Jake said. These people are counting on me. Besides, I feel fine. Better than fine, actually. The transport ship landed at the edge of the infected zone. Through the windows, Jake could see the exact line where healthy land became corrupted. On one side, there was normal Zephyrian vegetation with its soft blue glow. On the other side, everything was black and dead. Crystallis Prime activated his scanning equipment. The silent death energy is extremely concentrated here, he reported. A normal Zephyrian would die within seconds of setting foot in the infected area. But I'm not a normal Zephyrian, Jake said. He stood up and headed for the ship's exit. Wait, Queen Lyrolith called after him. Take this. She handed Jake a small crystal pendant. It will allow us to monitor your condition and communicate with you if you go beyond range of our regular equipment. Jake put the pendant around his neck and stepped out of the ship. The moment his boots touched the infected ground, several things happened. The warm energy inside him flared up like someone had turned up the heat. The black veins in the ground began to flicker and spark, and most surprising of all, Jake heard a sound like screaming coming from the corrupted earth itself. Jake, what's happening out there? Captain Parker's voice came through the crystal pendant. The infected area is reacting to me, Jake reported. The corruption seems to be fighting against something. I think it doesn't like whatever is happening to me. Jake started walking deeper into the infected zone. With each step, the warm energy inside him grew stronger, but he also began to understand something important. The energy was not just heat or power. It was something uniquely human. It was stubbornness. Jake had always been stubborn. When a machine was broken, he refused to give up until he fixed it. When a problem seemed impossible, he kept trying new solutions until something worked. When people told him something could not be done, he found a way to do it anyway. Now he realized that this human trait was something the Devourers had never encountered before. Every other species they had consumed had eventually given up when faced with overwhelming power. But humans were too stubborn to know when they were beaten. I think I understand what the inner fire is, Jake said into his pendant. It's not magic or special powers. It's just being human. We're too stubborn to quit even when we should. That does not sound very impressive, Queen Lyrolith's voice replied. You'd be surprised how powerful stubbornness can be, Jake said. He knelt down and placed his hands on the corrupted ground. Let me show you. The moment Jake's hands touched the infected earth, the warm energy inside him flowed out through his fingers. The black veins in the ground began to crack and break apart. Healthy soil started to show through the corruption. Plants that had been dead for weeks began to grow again, but the effort was exhausting. After only a few minutes, Jake had to stop and rest. He had managed to heal an area about 10 feet across, but the infection site was miles wide. This is going to take forever, Jake said. I can heal the corruption, but not fast enough to save your whole planet. The healing is not the important part, Crystallis Prime said through the communicator. The important part is that you can do it at all. If you can heal the corruption, you might be able to find its source. Jake looked toward the center of the infected area. About a mile away, he could see a dark structure that had not been there before. It looked like a tower made of crystallized shadow, reaching up into the sky like a finger pointing at the stars. I see something, Jake reported. Some kind of building at the center of the infection. That structure appeared 3 days ago, Queen Lyrolith said. Our scientists believe it is some kind of anchor point, a way for the Devourers to maintain their connection to our dimension. Jake started walking toward the shadow tower. As he got closer, the corruption around him became thicker and more aggressive. Black tentacles rose from the ground and tried to grab his legs, but they dissolved when they touched him. Clouds of dark mist swirled around him, but they could not seem to penetrate the warm energy that surrounded his body. Jake, your energy readings are off the charts, Dr. Chen reported. Whatever is happening to you, it's accelerating. Jake could feel it. The closer he got to the shadow tower, the stronger his inner fire became. It was like his human stubbornness was feeding on the challenge. The more impossible the situation seemed, the more determined he became to fix it. When Jake reached the base of the tower, he could see that it was not made of any normal material. It seemed to be constructed from pure darkness held together by malice and hunger. Strange symbols covered its surface, writing in a language that hurt to look at. Jake placed his hand on the tower's wall. The reaction was immediate and violent. The entire structure began to shake and scream. Cracks of light appeared in the dark material. But Jake could also feel something else. There was an intelligence inside the tower, and it was very, very angry. Who dares to challenge the Devourers? A voice spoke inside Jake's mind. It sounded like the whisper of wind through a graveyard. What are you, little creature? You taste of stubbornness and defiance. We have never encountered such flavor before. I'm Jake Miller, Jake said out loud. I fix things that are broken. And you've definitely broken this place. Fix? The voice laughed, but there was no humor in it. You cannot fix what we have unmade. We are the ending of all things. We are the final darkness that consumes all light. Yeah, well, I've heard that before, Jake said, usually from broken computers that think they're smarter than they are. Jake pressed both hands against the tower and let his inner fire flow into it. The structure began to crack and crumble, but as it did, Jake felt the intelligence inside it reaching out, trying to understand what he was. Impossible, the voice whispered. You are immune to our hunger, but how? We have fed on 1 million species across the galaxy. None have resisted us. Maybe you just never met anyone stubborn enough, Jake said. Humans don't like to give up. It's kind of our thing. The shadow tower was dissolving, but Jake could feel that destroying it was not enough. This was just one anchor point. There were others, and somewhere beyond this dimension, the real Devourers were waiting. Your ship, Jake said into his pendant. I need to get back to the Terra Nova. I think I know what we need to do, but I'm going to need some help. What kind of help? Captain Parker asked. The kind that involves flying into an alien dimension and having a serious conversation with some very hungry cosmic vampires, Jake said. That sounds incredibly dangerous, the captain replied. Probably, Jake agreed, but I don't think they're going to stop with just this planet. If we don't deal with them now, they'll eventually find Earth. And I don't think I'm strong enough to heal an entire galaxy by myself. As the shadow tower finished crumbling, Jake felt the infection site begin to heal around him. The black veins in the ground were fading away. The twisted trees were straightening up and beginning to glow with healthy light again, but Jake also felt something else. The Devourers now knew about him. They knew about humans, and they were very, very interested in finding out what made his species so different from all the others they had consumed. Captain, Jake said, I think we're about to have some very unfriendly visitors, and I'm going to need all the stubbornness I can get. The gateway to the Devourer realm looked like a crack in reality itself. It hung in space near the Zephyrian homeworld, a tear in the fabric of the universe that showed glimpses of a twisted dimension beyond. Through the opening, Jake could see landscapes made of crystallized screams and cities built from the bones of dead civilizations. I still think this is a terrible idea, Captain Parker said for the 100th time. She stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, watching the gateway through the main viewing screen. It's the only idea we have, Jake replied. He was suited up in his maintenance gear, but now it was enhanced with Zephyrian technology. Crystal panels on his suit would protect him from the hostile environment of the Devourer realm. While amplifying his inner fire ability, Queen Lyrillith had insisted on coming with them, along with Crystallis Prime and a small team of Zephyrian warriors. They all stood ready in the ship's shuttle bay, prepared for what was essentially a suicide mission. The gateway will only remain stable for 6 hours, Crystallis Prime warned. If we are not back by then, we will be trapped in the Devourer dimension forever. No pressure, Jake muttered. He checked his equipment one more time. Along with his enhanced suit, he carried a device that Queen Lyrillith called a reality anchor. It would keep him connected to his home dimension and prevent the Devourers from completely draining his energy. Jake, Dr. Chen said over the communicator, your bioelectric readings are incredible. The closer we get to that gateway, the stronger your inner fire becomes. It's like your body knows it's about to face the ultimate challenge. Jake could feel it too. The warm energy inside him was now a raging fire, but it was not angry or destructive. It was the fire of determination, of refusal to give up no matter how bad things got. It was the most human thing he had ever felt. "All right, people," Captain Parker said. "Let's go save the galaxy." The shuttle launched from the Terra Nova and flew toward the gateway. As they approached the tear in space, Jake could hear voices whispering in his mind. The Devourers were calling to him, curious about this strange creature that had destroyed one of their anchor points. "Come to us, little stubborn one," the voices whispered. "We are so very hungry to understand what you are." The shuttle passed through the gateway, and suddenly they were in a realm of nightmares. The sky was the color of dried blood, and it rained drops of liquid shadow. The ground was covered with the remains of 1,000 dead worlds, arranged like trophies in a cosmic museum of destruction. "This is what they do," Queen Lyrillith said, her voice filled with horror. "They don't just destroy civilizations. They collect them. They keep pieces of every world they have consumed." Jake looked out at the twisted landscape and felt his anger growing, but he kept it under control. Anger was not going to solve this problem. Stubbornness might. "Where is their leader?" Jake asked. "There," Crystallis Prime pointed toward the center of the realm. "The Prime Hunger waits in the Palace of Consumption." The palace was a massive structure that seemed to be built from living darkness. It pulsed and moved like a beating heart, and Jake could see faces pressed against its walls from the inside. The faces of every person the Devourers had ever consumed, trapped forever in the palace walls. As their shuttle approached the palace, they were met by a swarm of smaller Devourers. These beings looked like living shadows with too many teeth and eyes that burned with hunger. They surrounded the shuttle but did not attack. "They are curious about you," Queen Lyrillith observed. "They have never encountered anything they could not consume." The shuttle landed in front of the palace, and Jake stepped out onto the nightmare ground. Immediately, dozens of Devourers surged toward him, trying to drain his life energy. But when they touched his protective aura of inner fire, they recoiled like they had been burned. "Impossible," they hissed. "What are you? How do you resist the hunger?" "I'm human," Jake said simply. "We don't know how to quit." The massive doors of the palace opened, and Jake walked inside. The interior was even more horrible than the outside. The walls were covered with the memories of destroyed civilizations, playing like movies of final moments and dying words. At the center of the palace, on a throne made from the compressed remains of 1 billion planets, sat the Prime Hunger. It was the largest devourer Jake had ever seen, a writhing mass of shadow and malice that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. "So," the Prime Hunger spoke, its voice like the whisper of entropy itself. "You are the one who has been interfering with our feast. You taste of stubbornness and impossible determination. We have consumed the essence of countless species, but we have never encountered anything like you." "That's because you've never met humans before," Jake said. He walked closer to the throne, his inner fire blazing brighter with each step. "We're kind of unique that way." "Unique?" The Prime Hunger laughed, but there was uncertainty in its voice. "We have consumed beings of pure energy, creatures of living crystal, races that could manipulate time itself. What makes your pathetic little species special?" "We don't give up," Jake said. "No matter how impossible things seem, no matter how outmatched we are, we keep trying. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten." The Prime Hunger leaned forward on its throne. "Stubbornness alone cannot defeat us. We have devoured civilizations that fought for millions of years. But they all gave up eventually, didn't they?" Jake asked. "When they realized they couldn't win, they stopped fighting. That's when you consumed them." "Of course," the Prime Hunger said. "All intelligent beings eventually accept the inevitable. Death comes to all things. We simply speed up the process." "See, that's where you're wrong," Jake said. He was now standing directly in front of the throne, his inner fire so bright that some of the smaller Devourers had to retreat. "Humans don't accept the inevitable. We look at impossible situations and say, 'Watch me.'" Jake reached out and placed his hand on the arm of the throne. The moment he made contact, several things happened at once. The Prime Hunger screamed in pain and surprise. The palace began to shake and crack, and most importantly, Jake began to understand exactly what the Devourers really were. They were not evil exactly. They were hungry. They had been hungry for so long that they had forgotten what it was like to be full. They consumed other beings not out of malice but out of desperate need. They were starving creatures who had never learned how to feed themselves. "You're dying," Jake said with sudden understanding. "That's why you consume other life forms. You can't create energy on your own, so you have to take it from others. But the more you consume, the hungrier you become. It's never enough. We are eternal, the prime hunger protested, but its voice was weaker now. We are the ending of all things. No, Jake said. You're just really, really hungry. And nobody ever taught you how to make your own food. Jake let his inner fire flow into the prime hunger, but this time he did not try to destroy the creature. Instead, he shared something uniquely human with it. He shared the ability to create, to build, to make something from nothing. The prime hunger convulsed as new sensations flooded through its ancient consciousness. For the first time in millions of years, it felt something other than hunger. It felt the satisfaction of creation, the joy of building something beautiful, the contentment of making rather than taking. What? What is this feeling? The prime hunger whispered. It's called being full, Jake said. It's what happens when you create your own energy instead of stealing it from others. The transformation spread through the palace and out into the devourer realm. Every shadow creature that had spent eons consuming others suddenly discovered the ability to generate their own life force. They began to create instead of destroy, to build instead of consume. The palace of living darkness began to dissolve, but it was not dying. It was transforming into something beautiful. The faces trapped in the walls were released, their essences finally able to rest in peace. The nightmare landscape outside began to bloom with new life as the devourers used their newfound creative abilities. This is impossible, the prime hunger said. But it was no longer the prime hunger. It was becoming something new, something that had never existed before, a being of creation instead of consumption. Yeah, well, Jake said with a tired smile, humans are pretty good at impossible things. The return journey to the normal dimension was very different from their arrival. Instead of a realm of nightmares, they were leaving behind a dimension where former world destroyers were learning to build gardens and create art. Will they keep creating instead of consuming? Queen Lyrolith asked as their shuttle passed back through the gateway. I think so, Jake said. Once you learn how good it feels to build something instead of tearing it down, it's hard to go back. Captain Parker was waiting for them on the Terra Nova with the biggest smile Jake had ever seen. Jake, the silent death has stopped spreading. Not just here, but everywhere. We're receiving reports from across the galaxy that the corruption is reversing itself. Jake nodded and slumped into a chair. The inner fire was still burning inside him, but it was calmer now. More like a warm campfire than a raging inferno. So what happens now? Dr. Chen asked. You just saved an entire galaxy. That's got to feel pretty good. Jake thought about it for a moment. It feels okay, he said. But you know what? I think I'm